The ballroom promise. The crystal chandeliers sparkled like frozen stars above the grand ballroom. Their light danced across marble floors and gilded walls, making everything shimmer with an almost magical glow. In the center of it all stood two people who didn't quite belong to this world of wealth and privilege, yet somehow looked perfectly at home in each other's arms. Emma Hayes smoothed down the emerald green gown one more time, still unable to believe she was wearing it. The silk felt like water against her skin, so different from her usual cotton uniform. Just 3 weeks ago, she'd been scrubbing floors in this very building. Now she stood in the arms of Alexander Price, one of the most powerful CEOs in the city, pretending to be his girlfriend. How had her life changed so completely? It had started on a Tuesday morning, like most complicated things do. Emma had been mopping the hallway outside Alexander's office when she heard the crash. She'd rushed in to find him standing by his desk, a broken coffee mug at his feet, and the most defeated expression on his face she'd ever seen on a man so successful. "Mr. Price, are you all right?" she'd asked softly. He'd looked up, seeming surprised to find her there. Alexander Price was tall, with dark hair that was always perfectly styled, and eyes that carried too much responsibility for someone in their mid-30s. But that morning those eyes had looked almost desperate. "My daughter," he'd said quietly. "Sophie, she has a school event next week. A father-daughter dance. All the other kids will be there with both parents." He'd paused, his jaw tightening. "Her mother left us 2 years ago. Sophie pretends it doesn't matter, but I know it does." Emma had stood there, mop in hand, not knowing what to say. She knew about Sophie. The 7-year-old girl sometimes visited the office after school. Always polite, always a little too quiet. Emma had noticed the sadness in those young eyes. "The other executives," Alexander had continued, "they've been pressuring me about my image. They think a single father looks unstable, uncommitted. They want me to seem more settled, more conventional." He'd laughed bitterly. As if having a partner makes you more capable of running a company. Emma had started to leave to give him privacy, but then he'd said something that changed everything. "Would you come with me? To the dance, and to a company gala afterward, just for one evening. I'll pay you, of course. Double your monthly salary?" She should have said no. She should have walked away. But Emma had thought about her mother's medical bills, piling up like autumn leaves. She'd thought about her tiny apartment with the leaking ceiling. And she'd thought about little Sophie, who deserved to have someone show up for her. "I don't know if I can pretend to be someone I'm not," Emma had said honestly. Alexander had looked at her with something like relief. "I don't want you to pretend to be someone else. I just need you to pretend to care about me. For one night. Can you do that?" Now, 3 weeks later, Emma found herself in this ballroom, surrounded by people who spent more on their watches than she made in a year. The father-daughter dance had been the week before, and it had broken her heart in the best way possible. Sophie had worn a white dress with pink flowers, and her smile had been genuine for the first time Emma had ever seen. "You look beautiful," Sophie had whispered to Emma. "Are you going to be my new mom?" Emma hadn't known how to answer that. She'd simply hugged the little girl and said, "I'm here tonight because you're special, Sophie. And so is your dad." After the dance, Sophie had fallen asleep in the car, her head on Emma's shoulder. Alexander had looked at them in the rearview mirror, and Emma had seen something shift in his expression. Something warm and unguarded, but tonight was different. Tonight was the company gala, filled with board members and executives and people who would judge every word, every gesture. This was what Alexander had truly needed her for. The dance had just been practice. "You're trembling," Alexander murmured now, his hands steady on her waist as they swayed to the orchestra's melody. "I'm terrified," Emma admitted. "Everyone's watching us. Let them watch." His voice was gentle, reassuring. "You've already done the hard part. Sophie adores you. This is just dancing." But it wasn't just dancing. Emma could feel the weight of all those eyes, could hear the whispers. She knew what they were thinking. What's a man like him doing with someone like her? She probably trapped him. Gold digger. social climber, the music shifted to something slower, more intimate. Alexander pulled her closer, and Emma found herself relaxing despite her fear. There was something solid about him, something safe. Over the past 3 weeks, she'd seen beyond the powerful CEO facade. She'd seen him making silly faces to make Sophie laugh. She'd seen him fall asleep on the couch with a storybook on his chest. She'd seen him cry quietly in his study when he thought no one was watching, looking at photos of the wife who'd left because she couldn't handle being a mother. "Emma," Alexander said softly, and something in his voice made her look up. "I need to tell you something." Her heart stuttered. This was it. The night was ending. He was going to thank her, pay her, and send her back to her old life. Back to mopping floors and pretending this had never happened. This was supposed to be temporary, he continued. A business arrangement. But somewhere between the father-daughter dance and tonight, something changed. Emma held her breath. "Sophie asked me this morning if you were coming back. Not just for tonight, but coming back to stay. And I realized I've been asking myself the same question." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was raw with honesty. "I don't want this to be pretend anymore, Emma. I don't want you to be my fake girlfriend. I want to see where this could go. If it's real," the ballroom seemed to fade away. The watching eyes, the whispers, the glittering chandeliers, all of it disappeared. There was only Alexander, looking at her with hope and fear mixing in his expression, and Emma's heart beating so hard she thought everyone must be able to hear it. "I'm just a maid," she whispered. "Your board members will never accept—" "I don't care what they accept," Alexander interrupted firmly. "I've spent 2 years trying to be what everyone else wanted, trying to fit into their idea of what I should be. But Sophie needs someone who genuinely cares about her. And I need—" he took a breath. "I need someone who sees me. Not the CEO, not the money, not the image. Just me. And you do, Emma. You see me." Emma felt tears prickling at her eyes. She thought about the past 3 weeks, about how natural it had felt to sit at Alexander's dinner table, helping Sophie with homework. How right it had felt to laugh with them over board games. How complete that little family had seemed, even though she'd known it was temporary. "What if I'm not enough?" she asked. "What if I can't be what you need?" Alexander smiled, and it transformed his entire face. "You already are, Emma. You've been enough from the moment you walked into my office and saw me as a person instead of a title." Around them, the music swelled. Emma could feel the moment stretching out, perfect and terrifying and full of possibility. She thought about her mother's medical bills, about her leaking ceiling, about all the practical reasons she'd agreed to this arrangement. None of them mattered anymore. "Okay," she whispered. "Let's try. Let's make this real." Alexander's smile grew wider, more genuine than she'd ever seen it. He leaned down and pressed his forehead against hers, their eyes closing, the world shrinking to just the two of them. "Thank you," he breathed, "for taking a chance on us." As the orchestra played and the chandeliers sparkled above them, Emma realized that sometimes the most unexpected paths lead to exactly where you're meant to be. She'd come to this ballroom as a pretender, playing a role for money. But she was leaving as herself, just Emma Hayes, a woman who'd somehow stolen the heart of a man who'd forgotten how to let anyone in. In the morning, she'd have to figure out what this meant. How to navigate a relationship that had started as a business arrangement. How to help Sophie understand that this was real now, not just temporary. How to face the judgment and the whispers and the doubts, but tonight, in this moment, with Alexander's arms around her and the promise of tomorrow stretching ahead like an open road, Emma simply let herself feel happy. Sometimes, the best love stories start with a simple question and a chance worth taking. Sometimes, all you need is someone brave enough to ask and someone kind enough to say yes. And sometimes, just sometimes, the fairy tale is real.